let's get this show on the road. Hello everyone, my name is Fitterspace, and today I'll be interviewing the lead gameplay designer for Ion Fury, Jonathan Strander, and also Katherine Baskin will be here to help read questions and take questions from the chat. So, I guess without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into this. What we're going to do at the beginning is we're going to read off some questions that we've been reading online, questions that I've come up with too, questions from Discord and all that. And then we'll open up the questions for the chat, so everybody will be able to get their chance to ask him some questions. And they're saying the audio isn't good. They're saying the sound is really quiet.
Strange.
I
wonder,
they
can
muted.
you boost Fitter in Discord maybe?
He's at max. He's set at max. Actually.
Yeah. Let me if I get like just my mic, or is it everybody else's mic? That'd be really
just your mic.
Eat the
All
mic. Oh. Eat it like a hot dog.
Come on, baby. Eat the mic. I'm gonna get this stream. We're gonna get this stream banned. I'm sorry.
Let me go into my control panel and see if I can
Just hamburger the shit, maybe.
I'm gonna go to my recording settings.
I
thought this was all good already, but yeah.
I get yelled at all the time to just put it right up on my face. Like, this is actually a lot closer to my face than it looks.
Well,
if I leaned forward, I would be face planting in it.
That is a good point. It could be using my webcam mic.
Oh, snap.
Wow.
No.
I can't believe that.
Oh, he switched to the wrong
mic. This might be really
Oh.
loud. Is this loud?
There it is.
Oh my god,
now
you've got to be kidding me.
Alright, now I can turn him down slightly, I think.
Yeah, now you have to turn me down a little bit. I apologize for that, everybody. I'm really sorry.
Now I think it's more matching, though, right? Everything's
I
good?
should have had some kind of feedback
Alright.
coming through. Well, I guess it's better to figure that out in the first 30 seconds of the stream than the last 30 seconds. So I think we're good now. So, should we just start? Are we good now? Is everybody's good?
One mic is very loud. Am I loud?
Ooh, all right. We should have.
Maybe I can turn myself down.
I apologize, everybody.
There. That should be better for me. Everybody should match now. Sorry.
Testing.
You know.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. So you guys want to get into it?
Sure, let's
Do
go
it.
ahead.
All right.
I guess we'll start over here. Countdown to going live in 3, 2, 1. Hello everyone, my name is Fitterspace, and today I'll be interviewing the lead gameplay designer for Ion Fury, Jonathan Strander, and also Katherine Baskin over here will be here to help read questions and read the chat and things like that. So the way this stream is going to be structured from here on out is that in the beginning, maybe the first 30 minutes or so, we'll be reading questions that we found on the internet, Twitter, Discord, all that. Even the Steam forums, there was a question on there. And we'll be reading through those kind of questions that we've prepared. And then after that, we'll be taking questions straight from the chat. So everybody will get their chance to ask questions and, get an answer for it, hopefully. So the first question, we'll just go right into it, is what was it like to develop a build engine game 30 years after its release and to somehow optimize that so it works on consoles?
Oh my god, that was really tough. Basically, so the build engine, I don't know if anybody here has worked with it, but there's basically no tooling. We had to do everything through text documents and through like Mapster and build tools as we went. And basically the engine wasn't really made for a lot of what we were doing in terms of performance. We thankfully had the extra grunt of current CPUs to work with, but on consoles, not so much. And I had to rewrite large parts of the game logic multiple times, and then we had our the porting company with General Arcade. They came in and they took all of my code that was then optimized as Con code. They compiled it as C++ code and then integrated it into the engine on their side. So this is cool. I love that they put in all the extra little areas here you can explore. You can get a preview of where you're going to go next. I don't know if you guys saw that use message flash by. We put that in after what was it, Penny Arcade Expo? Yeah. So we had a version there on display, and people were having trouble using one of the elevators because they didn't realize that you could press the use button and open things up. A lot of games now have prompts for literally everything that you can do. And our game is like, no, have fun, explore. So we had to have a message up at the very beginning, like if you want to press buttons and stuff, you're going to have to press the use button. And guess what? It works with other things too. I mean, aww. I don't know if you speedrunners want to know that's the fastest way to get all the cans that you can. Oh shit, that was a one-hit kill. Next question, go for it.
You're muted.
I'm sorry about that. I was background noise trying to keep that quiet.
The Discord call muting fiasco.
So, Ion Fury was going to end up being a much smaller game than it originally, or than it ended up being in the end. Can you talk a little bit about how the scope of the game changed as development progressed?
Yeah. So originally it was going to be like a little pack-in with Bombshell, and after Bombshell unfortunately didn't do as well as Three Realms had hoped, and they weren't sure about having our project because there were some things that weren't gonna, happen on that timeline. We wanted to make sure that beta orders were filled though, so we came up with the preview campaign because, I don't mean beta, I mean special edition orders of Bombshell were supposed to come with this build engine shooter that was the pack-in. I gotta stop playing for just half a second.
You can't play your own game.
I know!
Questions.
Ah! It was supposed to be a pack-in. We decided that we were still gonna continue providing that to people, and we ended up getting such a big reception with the final preview campaign that we released that we decided to do a full game. Like, we had showed the preview campaign to some outlets and some other places, and they were like, oh my gosh. So we turned it into a full-fledged thing. We put it up for order where people could pre-order the game, get to play the preview campaign. It was pretty awesome. Why didn't I grab that shotgun over here? I'm playing like a speedrunner.
I've got a question here about playtesting, actually.
Yeah.
How do you play the game when you're playtesting it?
Oh my gosh, let me do this.
We've actually, I've even watched you guys do some testing.
Yeah, tell them, Kate, do I play like this usually when I'm testing?
No, it's much slower.
And everybody gets mad at me too. They're like, what are you doing?
Because, like, if there is something broken, you will find it. You'll be like, what is this? This needs to be fixed. This is bad.
Right.
People won't watch it.
When I'm playing the game as I'm designing it or giving feedback to level designers and like refining the design of the game, I would play it pretty much like I would play it like I am right now. Where I'm like, what? Oh.
Oh my god, the quarterback is toast.
And I'm not really looking around. I'm just kind of...
Yeah, because you have to assume that there's going to be some people out there that are playing the game that are maybe not as familiar with first-person shooters or just video games in general, right?
Certainly not with this type,
Yeah.
this era.
I don't even strafe jump or strafe run most of the time when I'm testing, to be honest, because I'm making sure that if you have a jump that is critical for progression, like this is... Even that one, you can jump straight on and be able to make it. And that was one thing that I said had to happen. Anytime something is not a secret or something like that, you have to make it accessible to the average player.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good game design.
And, and frankly, then I noticed things by doing that the level designers didn't notice. Like, oh, there's not actually markers for the path that I want people to take anywhere. Or I actually forgot to put the switch in the spot that I wanted to, and the only reason I've been able to get it correct is because I knew exactly where it was as the level designer, or something like that, you know? I notice that a lot too when I see playthroughs, somebody's showing off their map, playing through their map, trying to test it online for their own game, and I think, oh, they obviously are playing like they know where everything is. See, I know the yellow key's right up there, by the way, for anybody watching. I'm just demonstrating. Oh, you gotta potter around a little bit. Okay, so we'll get
Now
back
we
to
reveal
playing.
to the stream he's never played Ion Fury before. This is all
Oh,
a
God.
lie.
Don't do that. Don't shoot me.
No,
I got another.
it's important to bring in outside voices. And another thing that's kind of important with playtesting is to have an audience.
Oh yeah.
It's really easy when you're by yourself, when you're testing something, to get in that mode of running through it because you, like you said, you know where everything is. But somehow it's almost like public speaking when you have that audience, when you have somebody watching you play it. Suddenly, all of those problems, all of those like failure moments, they end up coming out and they end up happening. You know, mistakes and problems reveal themselves.
I've got another question here about the game's music. So,
Okay.
Can you talk about how the game's music was made and how you decided what kind of style the music would be in for this game?
Oh yeah. We definitely wanted... Oh, come on. Why didn't you die? We definitely wanted to have more... We definitely wanted to keep the cyberpunk feel like you would from a Deus Ex or even an Unreal. And part of that was being able to have our own instrumentation and a little bit of flexibility with the music, and that comes from the tracker music, which essentially is like MIDI, except for you load in every single instrument and sample you want, and so it's completely custom. Person doesn't have to have the appropriate hardware or sound library or anything, it's all just contained. And the soundtrack was able to be continually updated and adapted actually as the game was developed. Like, I mean, we would end up with a track that was 2 minutes suddenly becomes 7 minutes because Roz was able to just sit there and play with the track and play the levels and watch us do our thing. And I'm gonna die.
No, don't.
It's okay. I didn't have to die. I just wasn't watching the screen.
Sit down, little girl. This
Yeah, I
is
think the
your
tracker
final
music really fits
warning.
this game perfectly.
Yeah,
Send me to my room.
part of it, I mean, it gives everything a really unique kind of sound that you can't get anywhere else. Why did I waste all those? Whatever. I mean,
I've got another.
I love this stuff. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I've got another question for you from the Discord, actually.
Yeah.
So what was it like to work with Valerie Aram and Johnson John?
Oh, it's pretty fun. I mean, they're very talented people, and they were able to go over everything we wanted. They were very adaptable. Like Valerie had to pull, I think, 2 sessions for the 1.0 game release just to get all the voice lines done. And I mean, so she was a real trooper, and she was great. And I love her voice work. And John St. John is super fun. Like, he does all his own stuff. Like, he's got his own setup in his little studio, and it was pretty great. We could give immediate feedback and he was able to get us our stuff right away, and he told a lot of jokes, and it was great.
That's awesome. They're both very talented.
Yes, definitely. If you guys have the chance to work with them, anybody who's developing games, go right ahead. They're cool people.
I've got another question from more of a development perspective. So at what point do you start making new textures and sounds for the game? Are they made for specific maps, or are they designed to be the textures to be more generic that could be applied anywhere?
I actually... Oh, Jesus Christ. I did not remember there being this many enemies here, but...
Form here.
I'll answer in half a second. Mother... Why don't I just use that?
Why did you make your game so hard?
I
There's
don't
the question.
know.
You made your game so hard you can't play it on stream.
I know.
Oh my god.
One of the crazy things, though, is like, if I keep moving, like if I just start running around, you'll notice I don't take very many hits, and that's totally on purpose. The entire game is meant so that you can just keep dancing and you won't really take shots unless you directly step on a grenade like I just did. Don't do that. Anyway, when we originally set up for the game, we come up with we have our design document, and then we have our basic layouts of what areas and what order we want to have things, and we have an aesthetics guide that explains how things have to look, how they have to sound, all that kind of stuff. The artists work with us actually during the prototype stage to come up with all of the different little, what would you call them? Little details that we need as far as nailing down the style. And then once that's all laid out, the work can be combined with whatever mappers are doing in terms of their prototypes and early work to create the final appearance of everything. And once that happens, it's pretty simple to start getting things underway. Like the artist can say, okay, so I know I'm going to need this kind of texture, like some crates and some different kinds of walls that are this type of building and this type of building, and they can start doing some generic stuff. And then as they're doing that, the mappers can work with them too and say, well, I need this and I need that. And it starts to become a very collaborative process that way, and move relatively smoothly and quickly, as long as you have that nailed down in the beginning, like I said.
Yeah.
We had a couple of stream questions.
Okay.
We had one from Max Awesome Sauce. Nice name. What were the major challenges bringing this to the Switch? Did you have to make any concessions to get it running on that hardware?
Yeah, it had to be 30 frames per second. That was the biggest concession. The original version that we had running on the Switch, we tried to get 60 frames per second, and we were getting 20 frames per second. And so we said, okay, let's get 30 frames per second and see how well we can do there. And then as things went on, the General Arcade, the porting company, was actually able to work with our improvements and come up with their own in order to get the game running faster than 30. But it wasn't solid. It wasn't all the time. So we made it as a little hidden key where you enter the Konami code and then you can play with an unlocked frame rate. Otherwise, you get the 30 frames per second. That was one of the biggest things there, to be honest, was just that performance. Now, I think we might even be able to, with currently optimized versions of the engine, get that up even higher, and hopefully in a future patch have 60 from the beginning. But I don't want to promise anything either, but it's something we're definitely looking at.
That would be awesome.
I like the way you die.
I love the Konami code of how you get 60 FPS up here, or as close to 60 FPS.
12 secrets!
There's a lot of secrets in this game.
Why didn't I find any of the secrets? I didn't really look for them, that's why. I don't want to spoil too many secrets for people, so I'm just going to play. Okay? I might look at the occasional one, but...
We also had a question from MC Gore about how moddable this game is.
Incredibly.
How moddable is this game?
You can change basically anything. You can change every single enemy, you can change the gameplay style. It's completely moddable. I'm trying to think of something that can't be changed, to be honest. And a lot of it is without having to do too much work with the actual game code itself. In fact, I'm just going to do this very quickly, okay? Nobody freak out.
And I think the moddability of the game is also because it was made by modders.
Yes.
Like people who just lived and breathed modding Duke Nukem.
And we thought, well, if we're making a build engine game, why not also make it moddable, since that's, you know, how we figured out how to do things. So this entire survival mode that you're looking at right now, where I have infinite minigun ammo and I'm shooting enemies in an arena and all of this stuff, everything except the actual scoring at the top of the screen was done using mapping effects. And I had to set have a little thing for keeping your minigun ammo stocked. But other than that, it's just a mapper saying, here are all the spots where enemies should walk. Here's all the timing for all of the events. Here's this and that and the other thing. And they were able to just plug in all of this stuff and go. And so you can make new entire different gameplay modes just by doing that. And like I said, that was minimal code edits. I should have been more careful.
Yeah, the build engine is pretty flexible with how you can design the map, so you have a lot of things, a lot of modifiers in the map itself rather than modded game code, right?
In this version of the game, the enemies are actually, even that I'm playing right now, the enemies are probably more aggressive than what you play on Steam.
Yeah, quite a bit, at least from the looks of it. So I've got another question for you here.
Sure.
So how do you maintain consistency between all the levels in the game when the maps are all made by different people?
Well, just like we have an aesthetic sort of Bible for all of the artwork and everything, we create a complete set of design parameters for all of the maps as well. They have to adhere to certain rules, like how big a door should be, how critical path elements should be lit, what kinds of general aesthetic considerations you should have for a particular area, all these kinds of things. And they all have to be adhered to every time, or else we get very upset at the level designers. Within those parameters, they have a ton of freedom. Like, I mean, I didn't go through and say you have to do this, 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 and this, and neither did my co-designer Max. But at the same time, when they didn't do the right thing or they needed a slight course correction, we were like, "Hey, you got to do it. You know, you got to do what we need." And that, in the end, just keeps it totally locked in as far as how stuff should look, how it should play, and it keeps the players from having to guess about anything. Otherwise, they're wondering, what the heck am I supposed to do? Nobody likes to play, what was the designer thinking today? I mean, maybe you do, I don't know. It's not my, not my style. This is cool. So we did the lock-on. That had to be, I forgot there's a box over here. That had to be adapted. I think that was one idea that I think Rich, people might know him as Terminex, he came up with. He wanted to do a lock-on mechanic, and I said, what the hell? You want to do a lock-on mechanic in this first-person shooter? Are you trying to make it easy mode? And he, and so we sat down, and it probably took 2 weeks of planning to figure out exactly all the little details to make sure that it was going to feel like a real and fair mechanic rather than just a press to win.
It's an awesome game mechanic. I love it.
And basically everything is kind of like, everything was balanced like that. We wanted it to be somewhere in between your, like all your weapons are incredibly powerful, but they all sort of have a downside. So everything can come out balanced, and you have to remain a little bit flexible in your weapon choices, even though you can use your favorite for most of the game if you want to.
Yeah, I think it's almost like the player's a glass cannon in this game. You can deal so much damage if you really know what you're doing, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can also take a lot of damage very easily.
Yeah, that's one thing I think maybe until they play it for a good 20-30 minutes, sometimes new players don't quite grasp. After they grab a few for a while, they go, oh, okay. These little armor shards, not only do they tell you where to go with important paths, but they soak up half your damage. So the more of them you can maintain and the better armor set you can maintain, so the more of them you can hang on to, the better for you as a player. You're going to end up having a much easier time because you'll live at least twice as long in most scenarios. And the more damage you deal to enemies, the more likely they are to jib apart, and then you get more armor shards, which means you live even longer. So you can do it some more. Oh, you bastard.
Yeah, it's like a cycle that kind of encourages you to play that way.
So we had another question from MC Gore again. That was a good one. It said, since the game is running on Linux and has been ported to the Switch, can we expect some sort of update making use of gyro controls as offered by the Steam Deck to enhance the aiming experience? Or what are your thoughts on that? Talk about the Steam Deck.
Oh my gosh. I forgot to save, first of all, so now I have to repeat a bunch of stuff. I'm very upset. Not really that upset, but it's fun. It's fun to just play. That was one of the goals. Being able to just hit buttons and you're like, oh, this is fun. Anyway, as far as Steam Deck, that is something that we have looked at and been doing different verification runs on. The first time we did it, we actually were certified, and then for some reason they recertified us as the Proton version, and then they set us as playable but native. I don't know what's going on. We're going to try to get up and running on the Steam Deck, and I talked to the engine guys, and they definitely want to get gyro controls in there and stuff like that. I know you get some of it for free, I think, on the Steam Deck and with the Steam controller through Steam Input, but I think it'd be nice. You get it on the Switch, and I don't know if it's inherent though, and I have talked to them about that, like making it so even if you're not running Steam Input, maybe you can still run gyro control. So no promises, but something we're looking into because we do want to get everybody with the most smooth control possible. Save this time.
So, do we have time for some Aftershock questions?
Yeah.
Alright, I've got one here for you. What is some really important feedback that you got from the base game that is going to be improved when Aftershock releases?
Ooh, well, one of the big things is some variety, questions of variety, is that we had our zones mostly set outdoors with some longer chunks indoors here and there. And people weren't enjoying the indoor chunks as much, and they wanted a little more scenery variety, so we thought, heck, let's do that. So in Aftershock, you're going to see a lot more of the sky. You're going to see a few more different kinds of areas, a little bit more of a strong theming to some spaces, and it's going to be pretty cool. You're going to see some unique stuff compared to what you saw in this version of the game. I don't know why I keep hitting that. I don't even need to.
Yeah, I can't wait to try that out. From the screenshots, it just looks great so far. So, I got another question. Some of the levels later on in Ion Fury, like zones 5 and 6 kind of, are a bit more complicated than a traditional build engine game. So the zones will have maps that kind of loop back into each other.
Sure.
Does Aftershock do anything like that, or is it going to be more like the other levels in the game?
Aftershock's levels. So far, the levels themselves have loopback points, but there's not as much in the way of... I can't believe I only got one grenade from that. What a waste. Now I'm gonna die. See, I told you I was gonna die. Anyway. What was I saying? Aftershock.
It was about the levels that loop back on themselves.
Yes. So you've probably noticed these first couple levels are pretty much indicative of the rest of the game as far as flow, where you have these separate areas that keep looping back to hubs, and we kept that. And the difference is with, like, say, Zone 6, part of Zone 5 and then most of Zone 6 are a good example, where not only do you have that, but then within each section of the entire zone, we start looping back onto larger sections. It almost becomes like a hexen situation. And it's not quite that sprawling and confusing in Aftershock. It's much more straightforward. We're still keeping general loopbacks, but we're not plowing everything, trying to plow everything in the kitchen sink in and include, you know, a million different areas that you have to try to navigate and remember simultaneously. We did get some complaints about that.
that somebody had about how long the expansion is expected to be in playtime.
I'm not sure. As far as number of levels, it's... Last I beta tested, it was about half the number of levels of the full game. So, I don't know if that gives any indication of its size. What was the original game? Probably like 8 to 10 hours. So
Sounds about right.
maybe half that. It should be at least a few hours of good gameplay. For somebody less experienced, maybe a few more. It's got a lot of variety too, so, and tons of new power-ups and a new weapon, new enemy variants. It's gonna be pretty sick.
Yeah.
Plus, I think the range mode, which we want to talk more about
Great
soon,
range mode.
is going to add a lot of replayability. It's gonna extend your time playing the expansion part of it, because you can also go back and replay the main campaign with it.
Yeah, essentially what you get with expansion mode is you get the additions from Aftershock, so you'll get some new power-ups, you'll get some of the new enemy variants, all that kind of stuff. They'll start appearing in the main campaign, and then on top of a bunch of other stuff, it's going to be totally remixed. I was playing it the other day, actually, and it was messing with my head. It was cool. In a good way. Like, I'm sure you see every once in a while when I'm paying more attention to the game, I seem to know what I'm doing pretty well. I've gone through it once or twice, and once I hit that arrange mode, totally wiped from my memory. You know, I'm like, oh my god, it's a totally new experience. It's gonna be awesome.
We should have Max do a stream like this where he talks about arrange mode.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. He can play. Maybe he can play through a little bit of his Zone 3. Might be fun.
Let us know if you want to see that.
Always. So, I've got a question actually about, you brought up variety in Aftershock. Can you talk a little bit about the driving levels in Aftershock? Some of the design considerations you have to make for that?
Yes, as long as I don't die. Alright. Anyway, what was I saying? The design considerations for the driving levels in Aftershock are pretty... I'm going to stop for a second, actually. The first thing I did, actually, was prototype all of the bike stuff. So even back in late 2019, after the first game released, and we were kind of in discussions about what might be next for Ion Fury, I went ahead and did prototypes of the vehicle because some of the level designers and the other designer, Max, were like, let's try to do something cool here with adding in this extra thing that was in some other build engine games and stuff. So that was all prototyped and then had to be tested and refined probably over the course of 6 months-ish, just making sure that the bike felt right and how we're gonna make all the levels and design around the bike's different kind of movement and speed and all of that. Because when you're on the bike, you're larger, you're faster, you're more powerful, and your movement is entirely different. So that was all considered in the design as far as what had to be changed and stuff. And what you're going to find is that unlike a lot of probably most games of that era, but build engine games in particular, it won't be as clunky of a vehicle. It'll actually be agile and fun to use. So that was one of the big things that we wanted, to make sure that we weren't just having something for the sake of novelty, but that it was actually cool. It was actually fun.
Yeah.
People can look forward to it, for sure.
So what is the gameplay like when you're riding the bike?
Fucking cool.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
cool.
I bet.
I don't know how much I can say.
Sorry about the mess.
Some of it is a little more straightforward, like racing around town, and other things are more showing off some of the cool abilities of the vehicle, like just how destructive it is. And so that's, you get a little bit different look at the different sides of it, depending on which level you're in that you have the bike, because it does appear in a couple places. There's also going to be some oh shoot, some new gameplay mechanics that go along with that too, that you'll find out in a little bit, I'm sure.
Sounds fun.
I'm not designer, but I did play the bike parts. I mean, I have
man.
played them, and they're really, really fun. And he's, of course, like examining it from a completely different perspective, but it's very intense. Like, they're extremely intense. Because, like you said, you're big, you're powerful, and you almost feel like a bit overpowered at first, because it's a completely different experience from just walking around and shooting things. But it's awesome.
I'm jealous. Do you want to get into some more of the viewer questions we have here?
Sure. We had a question from Chaos Wolf. What would your message to GDQ be to accept Ion Fury for their summer speedrun marathon?
Oh, come on, you guys.
Like,
you
Max
guys-
should answer that.
Yeah, he should answer for sure. I mean, you gotta have it though. What's the current fastest run time? Somebody tell me.
It's under 30 minutes. Let me just, I don't want to get it wrong. It's 29 minutes, 28 seconds by, I'm not actually sure how to pronounce his name, Dalspectus. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it. I've actually never said it before.
Shout out to them.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. 30 minutes? I wouldn't even think that was possible, but
I
What's-
know, it's...
what's the 100% run time?
100% run. It's actually by me, I have the 100% run.
Ooh.
In Maximum Fury in 3 hours 36 minutes. Which is still very improvable,
Consumer
but
models.
I'll probably get back to that after Aftershock releases. The speed run for the community for this game is pretty great. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes, then Chaos
You
Wolf
love
has
it.
the all secrets record at 1 hour and 5 minutes, getting every secret in this game just over an hour. Isn't that insane?
This enemy's fun.
That's
I
Speedrunner.
Just over an hour.
I forgot how many secrets there are. There's hundreds of them. Pretty insane.
Oh shoot, and then I got hit anyway because I was too rushed. Oh well.
So then we had a more technical question.
Go for it.
What kind of documentation do we do for the game? Do we write down every enemy spawn?
No.
You were kind of the documentation guy in general.
And that's why the documentation is so poor. No. Because I basically did most of the design docs and stuff like that, and then as we went through in development, adding more features and tools and stuff, just because of our team size, unfortunately, we came up with less and less documentation other than what we had in editor. All the design stuff was constantly updated though, because we had to make sure that people were sticking to the plan. And you got to make sure though in the beginning that you're writing down your overall progression, like what your level order is going to be. Like you want the player to go here, 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 and here. You want to write down your core game loop. You want to write down how things are going to look. And when I say how they're going to look, overall visual style, including like color, shapes, all of that kind of stuff. You want to make sure to have everything that you can in the beginning written down. And as you go and you start refining things, write that all down too. And what you can do, what I did, and what I would definitely recommend, is that any new features, effects, enemies, anything else that you add or prototype, make sure that you create a unit test. So each of these enemies, I have just like a little tiny area, and all you do is you spawn in there and you fight them. And you can give yourself different weapons, you can do whatever, but you just fight them. And so I battled every single enemy in Ion Fury, probably many thousands of times, tens of thousands of times, just to refine them all. And that also made sure that anytime somebody reported something wrong, like an effect was messed up or an enemy was wrong, I could say, well, let's check the unit test. Is that broken? So that was great as far as keeping track of things. And on top of that, we could...
Imagine this isn't really the type of ventilation I specialize in.
That's great. Anyway, sorry, I got distracted by the guy falling from the ceiling into the fans. Yeah, as soon as you have a way of specifying stuff to the other developers around you and keeping it consistent, that's the most important thing. Anything else kind of comes and goes and can be iterated on, but as long as you have that updated, people will generally be on the same page, and if somebody's off the right page, you can say, well, here is what it was supposed to be. He said, pointing to his hand.
We had a very intense question from Diesoft.
All right.
Do you think you guys would do an open world type of game with build?
Ooh, maybe. Probably not in the same way that... So if we did do something open world, probably not in the way you might be thinking, like a modern open world game. It would be...
You would all lose your minds trying to do that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'm trying to think what the closest example of something that's much more... I didn't even know this was down here. Interesting. Okay. Cool. I didn't know there was that loop back. That's awesome. Good job, level designer. What was I saying?
Open world.
Oh god.
Not the same thing.
No, not the same at all. The open world that I would think of would be something that has more emergent gameplay and hub areas and stuff like that versus totally like, here's a sandbox, do whatever. The build engine was not designed for that. Every single thing that you see on screen, somebody had to make or think about intensely. Like every bit of lighting, the flashing red on the fan, somebody had to set that. They had to put this light beam here. They added all these, like, every single individual wall is shaded, like that one being darker than that. Well, somebody did that. I had to manually place with text all of the elements you see on screen, for example, and it gets really ridiculous. So most open world games rely on being able to drag and drop in elements and have it be super modular and create things that way, and build engine just is not that. It might seem like it could be because of how flexible it is, but it's just really not. It's not tooled for that at all.
So we had another sort of vague, very open question. Any plans for an Ion Fury 2?
Any plans for an Ion Fury? We still gotta release Aftershock. What do you mean?
Yeah.
What's wrong with me? I gotta hit the door control.
I think maybe an even better question is, will you continue to make build games?
That I don't actually know. We've been talking about it, and we had a few plans. We'd also had some plans for a few other things. So I don't know what the deal is right now. We're mostly just focused on Aftershock because, boy, are we busy.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that you guys will always love build.
Right.
You know, it's a small talent pool to work with.
Oh, for sure.
It's your team and like 10 other people.
It's hard to tell people too, like, yeah, we're gonna make this thing, and we want you to do your art for us, but we're not gonna, or your levels for us, but we're not really gonna have any way of easily adding it, or like as far as I say, the tooling being all text and stuff like that can get frustrating for people. The limitations can get frustrating for people as far as how you have to interact with it. It's flexible and fun though, so it's something I definitely like. I'm like, hey, build engine's cool. I like making stuff. Why did I hit that and then not the other one? I don't know what's wrong with me. I think I'm getting turned around because I'm busy talking.
What is the fascination and the draw to the build engine now in 2022?
Holy shit.
What makes it worth working with? He's quiet because he really has to think about this one. What is worth working with?
It is extremely difficult to work with, but it is also not in the same way. The fact that you can completely switch up what's going on almost instantly is insane. Levels can be completely, like, have sections completely swapped out on the fly very easily. I can go in and adjust bits of code to change things drastically very easily. There's some new little things I added to Aftershock the other day that I can't talk about. Sorry. But it was something that I just, I took a day or so and I was like, here's something new and fun you can do just for the heck of it. And that's the kind of thing that sometimes takes a little bit more planning in other engines. Like once you have it planned, you can sort of just pop it in and go. But in the build engine, you can sort of start with nothing and hack it almost like in a very old school way. Say, this is going to be like this, whether you like it or not. And that flexibility and potential makes it really fun to definitely like prototype and try new ideas and experiment with and see what kinds of stuff you get.
Do you think that you have any kind of responsibility or any kind of role in historical preservation using build? I mean, it is keeping something alive that might have otherwise disappeared.
I don't know if I really ever thought of myself that way necessarily, but I suppose at this point, the reality might be that. I always just for me, I've always loved game design and I've always done a ton of game design stuff, but I didn't finish school for it, and I ended up doing other things with life. I mean, like I was a musician, I got married, I had kids, all these other things. So build was always in the background as an easy tool for me to try out some of my ideas and keep my imagination going. And then somebody was like, hey, we want to take this thing that you've prototyped a million ideas in and use it. And I was like, sure, no problem.
You were going to be doing it anyway.
Yeah.
This was a new opportunity.
Exactly.
Somebody in the chat brought up a good point about Crest C840 brought up that the limitations of the engine do kind of force you to get creative with it, right?
Yes. So they say that limitation breeds creativity, and that's actually to some extent true. And it doesn't necessarily have to be with the build engine, but the build engine's limitations give you that upfront structure that can sometimes be it engages the puzzle solving part of your brain. Like you start thinking to yourself, how can I take an engine where everything's top down and start making these 3D looking structures like this and these arches and pillars and all of these kinds of things. Somebody had to construct all of this by hand using sector splits and placing sprites and textures in just the right places. And I know for a fact that they often would see something in real life, like walking around town somewhere or looking at photos online and go, oh, I wonder if I could make that in Build. Huh. And then the gears start turning and they start, changing and simplifying things or adjusting them. And next thing you know, they figured out how to make something really amazing using something that shouldn't be able to do it. That was a really crappy save. Did you see that?
That was insane.
All right.
So we've got one from Canadian Andrew, one of our biggest fans. What was the inspiration for Shelley's character?
Ooh, mostly, so we grew up, most of the team grew up with like 80s and 90s action movies where you'd have these strong female characters that would be tromping around doing their thing, no nonsense. And maybe some of them had a little attitude, some of them didn't, but the general kind of idea and structure, personality was like things like Sarah Connor, and we put a little Anne from RoboCop in there, and a few like there's a little bit of Ripley, but then we threw in some of our other favorites, like she's got a little bit of John McClane sarcasm and all that kind of stuff thrown in there. So we took a lot of our things from that. We also, in general, wanted to have a character that. Where's the why can't I find the... Oh, because it's down there and I'm afraid to fall. That's why. Sorry. Don't mean to distract myself from myself.
Dance, fucker, dance.
We wanted to make sure that the attitude of the character was just right for the style of thing that we were doing. She had to be sort of maybe a little bit younger sounding, like maybe late 20s, have a little bit of an attitude about stuff, a little bit cocky, sort of like, but not necessarily overconfident like a Duke Nukem, just a little bit cheeky. And that was important to make sure that she was a little cheeky, but not too over the top. And that general blend of seriousness and jest, I think, really helps with keeping some of the strange tone of the game in check. There's a lot of sort of, for anybody that decides to go through and play later, is if they do a little bit more of the exploring that you can, because there's tons of secrets and other areas to see that I'm just kind of breezing by. There's a ton of hidden lore and ideas in the game, and it all sort of meshes together using Shelley's personality.
So we've got another one. Have you guys talked with Ken Silverman about what you've made with his engine?
Absolutely. He was totally on board from the beginning. He actually, he owns, for commercial purposes, he still owns the rights to the engine. So, we had to check with him before we could do the project. And he wasn't directly involved in the development, but it was his blessing the whole way through. So... pretty awesome. He's a good guy. I used to chat with him a ton when he first released the source code for the build engine, and he's a great dude. So
yeah. So is the Aftershock development team the same size as the Ion Fury team?
Oh, there's still a bad guy. That was cool. All right, anyway. Yeah, it's roughly the same. It's roughly the same. So the original game had around 8 to 10 people developing it at any given time. And it's about the same for Aftershock so far. Probably about 8 to 10 folks on average. So it's just a very small collection of people to handle everything. So
Yeah. And it's one of those things where everybody kind of has multi-talents. Like,
what am I doing?
we can't really have one person who just does one thing on the team. Except for me, I only do one thing on the team, which is stuff like this. But everybody has to wear many hats all the time.
I forget where the yellow, or not the yellow, but the next area is. Ah.
Why is Shelley such a nerd for the offspring?
Real talk? So are we.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically it right there. We were all big Offspring fans, so we included a bunch of lines. And we'll do it again, I'm sure.
Can't wait.
We have all new references coming.
Shelley's a huge nerd in general. Why did I start way back here? Apparently I didn't save after I did this death-defying thing. That's not smart of me. But yeah, there's going to be a ton of more references, and Shelley's a nerd in general because the development team are, so.
Yeah, like I've been in on the conversations where you guys are deciding secrets, and it's always just like nothing but movie quotes. I like this. Or you remember this from a movie? Remember this from this song? So yeah, it's all just nerd talk.
For sure. It does give the benefit of building a little bit of character lore too, because then it gives the impression, like, we're obviously in the future, so then it gives the impression like, oh, maybe Shelley's a little bit nerdy too.
She's like Sandra Bullock from Demolition Man.
There you go, exactly.
She's interested in 20th century.
That's a great
pop
description.
culture.
I love it. That's perfect. That's exactly what I was thinking. I just couldn't name it. God damn.
Consumer models.
I'm gonna save even though it's not a good idea.
I've actually got a question for you. It's so I mean, I guess what made you decide to have so much of the game be references and to pop culture from the 80s and 90s and all that? Like
I really needed that.
Part of Ion Fury was to create sort of a love letter to a lot of things that we liked in general. Some games that we liked, gameplay, ideas that we liked or had had over the years, movies that we liked or things we'd seen, books we'd read. We tried to just throw it all in. Like, we were, honestly, I mean, considering we were a bunch of amateurs, and it was kind of a big opportunity, we didn't know if we'd ever get anything like that again, so we just threw everything in the kitchen sink in that we could. There were a few things that were amiss that will end up in Aftershock, I'm sure. But in general, yeah, it was meant as a big love letter. And it's also kind of a cultural reminder, in a way. Like, the development team is all getting a little older, and a lot of the things that we are interested in or we talk about are only maybe in the last couple of years becoming popular again with younger kids. And otherwise there was this huge gap where I could talk to younger kids and I could name something I grew up with and they would have no clue, because for them the culture had completely shifted after the 2000 to like the 2010s. It was just a totally different thing for them. And so now younger people are starting to be introduced and interested in this stuff, and it's pretty cool.
What are some of your favorite Shelley lines?
Oh, You know what's funny? It's when she screams, "Oh my God, the quarterback is toast." I did not originally want that in the game because I was like, that sounds dumb. And then it was Rich that said he wanted it, and so we kind of argued back and forth until he was like, no, it's from the movie, and he shows me the clip, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, as long as she says it something like that, we can do it, and so we got it.
I'm so glad. That's probably my favorite one too.
I don't know. Yeah, she says a lot of. She says different lines too, depending on what you're doing. Like if you just do a regular kill versus a headshot or a jib, those are all different lines. I had to code an entire dialogue, like back-end system, to prioritize what Shelley should say at any given time, which was kind of funky, but I think it worked out pretty well. And she's a lot of fun. I think I like most of her lines. I don't know if there's anything I don't like. I'm a little sad that a couple of them didn't make it into the final. Why didn't I go into the thing again?
I guess that kind of leads me to my next question. Is there anything that you wish was included in Ion Fury but was added or maybe improved upon in Aftershock?
Yes. In Ion Fury, we had actually... Yeah, I mentioned at the beginning that we're doing a little more theming in Aftershock, and that was something that we had wanted to do from the beginning. And we also had wanted to do more with the items and power-ups and that kind of stuff. I'm sure you, Fitterspace, saw the 2.0 update. We introduced the Pocket, and that's actually going to be important for Aftershock because we're going to have a lot more new items for players to mess around with and have fun with, and that should be awesome. It's going to be introduced totally new playing ideas. Like that's one of the big keys is anything we add. We kind of try to make sure that it creates new gameplay opportunities that are interesting, rather than it just being same old, same old. I did not realize those guys were there.
I can't wait to play it.
I'm going to do this a different way. Oops.
Yeah, the Electrifier had a pretty big buff in the 2.0 patch, right?
Yes. It got an infinite extension on the alternate fire. Before it was about like that, maybe a slightly longer, and now it's nicely. Wait, I forget where to go next. Darn it.
Yeah, and it'll stun people around it too, so you don't have to just.
I had
So you
complaints.
don't have to just hit the person. You can hit somebody and it'll stun like everybody around them too.
Yeah, I had complaints from one dev. He thought it was overpowered, the baton, because as you'll notice, those two guys were standing next to each other in the corner. Well, the shock carried through to both of them. So then when I was dying repeatedly, I was like, well, why don't I just stun lock both of them? This is not the way, is it? I guess it is.
Oh man, the range on that was crazy. Maybe it is overpowered. I didn't know it could go that far.
This was one of the key new mechanics we had, which was the fans. But you'll see I died. That's okay. Hold on. Shoot. Die. I'm trying to talk over here.
Say my name.
Say my name. We had Valerie kind of do that little teeth grit thing, like JSJ did in Duke Nukem sometimes for some of those lines to make them sound a little harsher. It was kind of fun. She's like, this is cool. Anyway, these fans here are similar to like boost jumps and other kinds of mechanics you might see from more of a Quake era game. And we wanted to have something like that in here, so here we go.
We have a really good question from MC Gore asking lots of good questions. Could you elaborate more on how one might start creating content for the build engine? I've seen the level editor, but where would one find information on how to switch out sprites and voice lines for the main character, or where to put models to work with custom assets? Generally, what do you recommend to start with?
What you gotta do is you're gonna want to get the latest Educ. I just died way far back. That sucks. I didn't even have to. I just fell. So if you go to the there's a repository, a Git repository for Educ 32, and they publish nightly builds on or near nightly on a little repository, and you can download the latest version there. The 3D Realms Discord, there's a link to some tools. I think they have been updated recently. Let me see. Say, Kate, do you have a link to the Ion Fury effects documentation page and like level creation page? It's like called Fury Map or something like that. I don't know if you have that.
I don't know if I do either. Let me look.
I'm gonna kill my stream. Please don't die, stream.
Stream is still up. I think you're good. I think you're in the clear.
All right. I'm just gonna paste this in the chat. There you go. And then and why did I only do HTTP? It should have been HTTPS. Anyway, I'm crazy. There's one other link. Synthesis. So anything you get from there will be compatible with Fury. And then you can get from this page the latest Mapster 32. The pack of scripts that you'll find on that Fury map page are going to be what you want to use with Mapster, and that will tell you some of the documentation as you highlight things in the editor. It'll start saying, oh, this does this and this does this, and you can give this flag, and so very helpful.
And I guess just for the people that might be watching on YouTube or something, these are going to be pinned on the 3D Runs Discord, right?
Yes.
We can do that.
We can do that for sure.
Cool. That'll be helpful for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're currently pinned because 3D Realms recently rearranged their Discord, but they were at one point. So.
Yeah, they might have been pinned on Mapping Central at one point, but pretty sure that's now just either not a channel anymore or something. I don't know what happened to it.
Speaking of Fury Map, is there any place where we can have a list of the sounds and music without having to test every number?
Yes. If you open Mapster 32 and you press F2. Yes, F2. It'll show you a list of every single sound. And you can press enter to play them. The other place would be in the document, if you just need to know the names of stuff, in the document, what is it, sounds.con, I think it's script/sounds.con, you can find that information. But F2 and Mapster is usually what you want. That's what I use. Otherwise, I'm hunting around for the sounds all day, too. It's not just you.
And then we have Kite Star says, if given the chance, legal issues aside, would you folks properly remaster Duke 3D? Or even put the old game back on more recognizable storefronts and package it with a source port? Of course, this is hypothetical, only asking if you had the chance.
Sure.
In a perfect world.
In a perfect world.
Yes.
So, in a perfect world, let me see, what can I say? When we were developing Ion Fury, originally, we did ask about potentially throwing Duke in as a collaboration of some kind, like at least referential, and unfortunately we weren't allowed to do that by Gearbox and others, and that was too bad because we just wanted to have like a little mini adventure. As far as doing a new Duke Nukem game with the character and everything, I am not sure if I did do it, or it would be more similar to Duke Nukem 2013, which was a mod for Duke Nukem 3D, than something like DNF was, where everything was modernized. I don't think I'd try to do that. I'd probably try to keep at least more in the spirit of Duke Nukem 3D, continuing some of the story and elements of Duke Nukem 2, where Duke Nukem was himself like a serious character, thought of himself as serious, while also being obviously narcissistic and over the top about everything, which was part of the humor. So,
But just to be clear, we are not.
we are not, okay? I can't do
We
it.
will not.
I have no design document written. I have no plans. I haven't talked to anybody because it's not happening.
Yeah.
Unless there's like something crazy. I don't know. You want to get a fan campaign going with hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. I don't know. We'll talk.
Yeah, send us hundreds of millions of dollars.
Sorry about the mess.
Was Polymost improved?
So, for people that don't know, which I imagine is many people that play the game, Polymost was the original OpenGL mode that was added to Educ 32 after the build engine was released. It was actually added to a different source port and then added into Educ 32, then updated. It's complicated. Anyway, over the years that had sort of stagnated a little bit, and then there was a new renderer introduced, and then that, unfortunately, fortunately for him, one of the developers ended up going to work at Valve. So he ended up having to leave that by the wayside. But then as we were developing Ion Fury, we said, well, we have this original Polymost renderer that already is working, and we only need to do some updates to it. So what can we do to make that happen? And so, yes, it was updated. It's actually been updated even more recently to have...
Seems like someone's a little behind on the bills.
I love that. Anyway, that was one important thing, by the way, is that Shelley, anything that's kind of important, Shelley should make a comment about, and then that provides a little bit of context for what you should be doing next. Anyway, after that was decided upon, the Polymost renderer actually got a chance to be greatly improved, and it's a heck of a lot faster now than it was when we started. In fact, I think one of the developers ran a test the other day and had something go from a couple hundred FPS to like 1,000 or something ridiculous like that. So I don't know. Hopefully future versions will continue to see performance improvements. I don't know what I just did. Oh, I know what I did. That's right, I programmed a cheat for myself. I must have bumped the key. Check this out. I did a keybind, and I bound my mouse button 4 to do some, mouse 4, it sets as for. I'm actually not going to type the whole thing, but beam. And then I typed more like variable setting, and then once I press that button, I can get Shelley to do this. Slow motion coin flip.
Nice.
And then I get slow motion for a little bit. So a little cheat I made for myself just for the hell of it. What are the advantages of knowing how everything works?
That's what game development is all about. So, Quakestorm asked, have you ever used the maximum level size given by the editor for a level in Ion Fury or Aftershock? I mean, you're not a level designer, strictly speaking, but has that ever happened?
So, if you're thinking that the entire grid was used, no. If you're thinking that we've stretched levels to the edges of the grid, the answer is yes. And the difference is that if you had the ability to see the entire grid all across at once, unlike say Doom, where everything is pre-cached and in memory and has references to each other and build, it's all done dynamically. And what's going to happen is as soon as you step outside, it's going to say, oh, there's this huge area where I can see all of this stuff. Let me try to render all of it, or at least check if I should. So you don't want to do that. But as far as like having a level that's just big enough that it goes across everything, yeah, you can do that for sure. And we have. Oops,
So
missed.
somebody wants to know what's next for Void Point after Aftershock. I don't know.
Oh, I can't talk about that. I can just say that, you know, there are some things that we're looking at, but we're focused on Aftershock.
Yeah. There are some ideas, but they're just ideas. That's all we can say.
Mm-hmm.
That is all we are at liberty to discuss.
Yeah. We don't want anybody to get in trouble.
Hope they don't break up like the Beatles. Aw, we're not gonna break up. There's no Yoko in our midst.
Yeah, if anybody was the Yoko, it's probably me. Just walk in and start making demands. Start singing odd noises. Why can't I find the last
We're taking
thingamajigger?
this in strange new directions.
I thought it was underwater here. Maybe I lost my mind. Fitterspace, where's the next generator? Why can't I find it?
You have to go around and use the yellow key card. So go up the ladder to your right, or go up the go up there and then to your right.
Okay.
You're going as far away from it as
freaking
possible.
jumped.
No, that's not.
You said the right. This is right. So where am I going?
It's the opposite direction you're going in now. So like you have to go down like to the ground, and there's a door you have to go through, the yellow door, all the way down. You were just looking at it, down the steps to your left.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, that's.
I'm freaking blind, man. I get distracted and then I lose my place.
There is a way to get past those Tetris blocks without. But it involves some pretty crazy things I don't expect you to do.
Yeah, that's okay.
In the Ion Fury universe, are old-fashioned cars actually still in regular use?
Yes. Ion Fury is. Let's see. What year did I say? I think I said it was. I think I made a joke that the whole game takes place in like 2097.
I think that's right.
Yeah, I was like, it's it's after the Wipeout Grand Prix, but before the One Must Fall tournaments. Anyway, we had thought, especially as you progress through the game, you see different classes of buildings and areas and types of things around you, and we wanted to keep the idea that there's sort of this odd, gritty, old-fashioned, unupdated aspect to everything combined with high technology. And that also kind of increases some of the storytelling as far as the lore that you can imply by doing that. What am I doing? Why am I not going up to the Tetris thing? I know what I have to do next, and I'm just not too busy exploring and jumping around. I like leaping.
You have to explore. It's like one of the best maps in the game.
Well, we had a question that we kind of already talked about, but why not return to it? Are there more huge-ass levels in Aftershock?
Yes. When I was testing, I actually just this couple weeks ago, I got through playing a pretty decently sized level comparable to something you might see in the main campaign. So, you know, I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed by the size of the levels necessarily. I mean, I guess somebody can be disappointed. That all, you know.
This is the internet. Someone will be disappointed, I'm sure.
The disclaimer is probably that 99% of people will probably be satisfied with the size of the levels, hopefully.
Yes. Definitely. And especially because they're very high impact, like Kate said. So.
The old GDF Academy is nearby. Time for a shortcut.
Playbones actually asked a really good question about what sort of things are you going to be scaling up for the new difficulty level? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Can I talk about that? Hold on. What have I said or Rich said publicly so far?
Bang, bang.
Before I do this, let me save, and then I'm gonna think for half a second. So the fifth skill, it will as of now, there's some changes to some slight changes to enemy behavior, and then we introduced. Have you played? Well, I'm sure a lot of you have played Resident Evil Remake, and if you remember the idea of the Crimson Heads, like if you kill a zombie but you don't actually dispose of the corpse, the zombie keeps coming back, and we have the same idea as the fifth difficulty. If you don't dispose of the corpse, they can keep coming back. But rather than have it like, say, Doom Nightmare, where everything just keeps spawning infinitely, or even Duke at the hardest difficulty level, you know, just infinite enemies. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to have it feel still fair. So even though the entire mode is more difficult, you're going to see more enemies just because of resurrection and stuff like that. You're never going to feel that this is bullshit. You're just going to feel, holy shit. I mean, I guess if you're a new player, you'll feel it's bullshit and uninstall the game. Yeah.
Sounds really interesting.
Despite all your rage, you are still just a rat in a cage. I will enjoy your demise.
Haha.
Get that fucking jalopy
So
out
we
of
have
here.
this boom in retro shooters that was sort of brought on by this game. But what are some of the other retro shooter projects that you've been impressed with?
You ask me right when the wave starts, of course, you know. You know, I've actually seen a lot that I really liked. I really liked Wrath. Not to plug 3DR and feel nepotistic in that way, but you know, I was liking that game. I enjoyed a medieval I haven't played that much of it, but what I played I enjoyed. It was very much kind of like an Unreal sort of experience. Whereas Dusk was a little bit of a cross between Blood and Quake, and that was pretty fun. I played probably the first couple episodes of that. And I've been checking out on and off some of the, I can't name any names, but I've been checking out some of the smaller projects from indie devs I see around the net, and people are coming up with a lot of cool ideas, and it makes me really excited whenever there's like Realms Deep or something like that to be able to see what people are working on. Cultic. Missed. One of the things, so I killed all the enemies and then the gate lowered, I can leave. Simple premise. One of the things we did in the game is we have a lot of systemic stuff in terms of movement and physics, and so props can be pushed around and moved and stuff like that, and these darn speedrunners figured out that they could just push a potted plant or something else that's kind of tall and then jump and leap over the gate. I was like, damn you guys. And we didn't stop her from doing it though. I mean, that's the thing is, for normal gameplay, we try not to make it so you can do it accidentally. But if you are extremely purposeful and it's not necessarily a glitch, we kind of just let you do it because it tends to be more fun.
Yeah, there's that sense of discovery. I think that's one of the things that I like about speedrunning is that you can just, you have the freedom to do whatever it is you want to do. You know, you can jump or crouch jump wherever you want, and sometimes it has unintended consequences, but that's part of the fun, you know. Sort of reminds me of like Halo being able to grenade jump and get out of bounds and stuff, and the developers knew about it, you know.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that I end up finding out about, and I'm like, we're just gonna leave that, you know. Like,
yeah.
One of the things you've probably discovered is if you crouch right before a jump, or right before a fall, and then let yourself fall, and then extend your legs, you won't take as much damage, or any damage in some cases. And it's like, that's friggin' silly as far as how the controls are and everything. Like, I don't know, it makes logical sense, but only in game logic. Like, if you're falling in real life, you're gonna fall. But in a game, sure, yeah, you popped your legs up and down. Why not? It's all good. And that's kind of important in general when you're designing things, like both what makes sense and what makes game logic sense. How many things are people going to be like, well, why can't I do this? I used to test this level before it had enemies in it by running around and like spamming spawned enemies everywhere and then just fighting them. It was pretty fun. Oh shit, almost killed myself.
Oh no. Oh, I think there's a little bit of a delay on the stream because I saw that like 5 seconds after you said that.
Probably.
I think that's how things go on Twitch.
I did set it to low latency, but it probably doesn't like me anyway, you know. Typical. I love using the grenade launcher. One of the things that I ended up doing for one of the trailers for right before the original game was released is I practiced playing an area over and over with just the grenade launcher where all you're doing is fighting flying enemies. So I would like run in and then leap off into their face and shoot grenades, and it was pretty fun. The grenade launcher is actually inspired heavily by Quake versus something like Shadow Warrior. It's a little heavier than Quake, but it's meant to still generally feel like a kind of an agile, bouncy kind of thing you can come up with that you can trick shot with and have cool uses for.
Yeah, I really like that a lot of, pretty much every weapon in this game is extremely powerful. I mean, the pistol that you start with is good all the way through the entire game, you know?
Oh, you bastard.
It's such a nice thing about this game.
Whoops. I want you.
Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto.
Do I have bowling bombs? I only have 4. That sucks! Bowling bombs are my favorite weapon, to be honest. I love playing in the Bombardier mode where you get infinite bowling bombs and just tossing them everywhere constantly. It's great.
Yeah. The really cool weapon.
I forget where I'm going. I know I'm looking for the key, but I just can't remember what I was doing because I was so busy talking. The plight of the streamer. Why do I look like an idiot on the stream? Because I couldn't watch what I was doing most of the time. Yeah, that's I saw a chat flash up with Max talking about the music. Music in this game is really awesome. Roz is really fun to work with. He is experienced in a variety of musical styles, so basically I could say, hey, something like this and something like this, and Max, the other designer on the team, could say, well, let's try this and this too, and then he could come back with a couple of iterations. And I know I've already sung his praises, but yeah, if somebody has a chance to work with him, go for it, because he's a good guy. He works quick too.
Yeah.
I've got a question actually. How do you decide what songs go best with which levels? You know, do you have an idea of when you're playing the level, this is what the song needs to be, or do you just kind of make songs and you just put them to a level?
It needs more orchestra hit. He was able to do songs sort of as we requested as mood pieces, and then also offer up things once we had kind of like the art Bible and the other design Bibles, like for level and stuff. We also had a sound Bible and a music Bible, and it said this is kind of what the general aesthetic of the music should be like. And so he was able to explore with different tracks, and then sometimes we could be like, hey, yeah, that'll work, let's do that. Or we could say, well, we would need something more like this. And to decide which fit with which level, it really had to do with the mood of the level, and the level designer was able to chime in and say, hey, well, my level's going to be kind of like this, it's going to be a little scary, or it's going to be a little adventurous, I want this sort of sound to it. And he could chat with them and come up with something, and then run it by Max or myself and come up with the final result. And it was pretty cool. Why did I... Central area, right? Wait, which place did I open again? I don't even remember. I feel so bad for you, Leo, Davox, the guy that made this map. And I just spoiled the secret. Sorry. I did another one earlier too.
I think what you're looking for is behind you a little bit. I can kind of spoil it for you if you want.
Go for it. Go for it. Because I can't remember. I'm gonna stand here.
In there, in that one room that was to your right.
Say my name.
You go into that room, and then to your left. Seems like that's where some bad guys are, and then to the left is where the next key card is.
I cannot believe I missed that spot. I thought I already ran in this room. Oh my god, I'm such. That's why they pay you the big bucks for the speed running, because you know where everything's at. I hate to waste it, but for anybody that hasn't played the game, we do have one mechanic. I mean, a lot of mechanics are actually inspired by blood, because we like blood. But the bowling bomb has similar to TNT. And let me prime it a little bit. Whoops. Gotcha. So yeah. One of the fun little things we added. Everything generally has an alt-fire alternate uses.
Yeah, that's one of the best things about this game is just how much freedom there is with the weapons, how many different ways you can use them.
My favorite weapon besides I really like the bowling bombs, I already said that, but the crossbow is actually probably the coolest weapon, to be honest.
It really is.
It's basically shotgun, sniper rifle, and BFG. Which sounds insane, but you know, I can get this guy from there, or charge up and get both of those guys. I mean, easy.
Something I noticed with you using the crossbow here, do the bolts fire faster in this version? Is this,
no, and yes. No and yes. They do not technically fire faster. There's new art for a lot of stuff. If you notice it in the video, go ahead and leave a comment, because we introduced a lot of new visual elements and tweaks that are still in progress, but they're going to be part of the next patch for Ion Fury. So, and I decided to play it.
The greater cultists shoot at you, it looks different too. The arrows are more defined. It looks great.
Sorry about the mess.
Really a level designer, all of those guys. I suppose that's why this weapon exists. It was cool. It's interesting watching younger people play. Like even I have a son who's just about the age to start playing some games like this, and I mean, since I'm his dad, I was like, here, you can sit down and play it a little bit. And he was able to intuit a lot of the game design mechanics without anybody having to explain it to him. Like even just the fact that switching between one gun and two is less ammo and more accuracy and stuff like that. He picked that up really fast. It was cool. Kind of validating as a designer when just a random kid is like, yeah, that makes sense. Wait, what am I doing? Gotta go down here. Make the shotgun. Unofficial. So, one of the things, I don't know if anybody in the chat has already read this. I'm going to explain a little bit. But we published some docs explaining a little bit of the design behind the enemies and the combat. And one of the things we did was we wanted to include headshots in the game, but we wanted to make it feel a little bit more interesting than just build game with headshots or something sort of simpler like that. So enemies actually have a gradient of damage from the feet to the head, and it gets greater as you go towards the head. And then the head, you get your headshots and stuff. And so it's generally accuracy is extremely important. And then there's silly things like that because of that, where if I take the shotgun and I get all the pellets and plow it through, the upper part of an enemy, they will explode into gibs, and then I can just keep plowing through with more and more armor shards, which we discussed a little earlier. So.
Oh, we have a question. Will there be any mini games in Aftershock? I need to increase my ego meter.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
There will be mini games.
Yeah. Kate will confirm. She saw one just a day ago, so.
You will have plenty of ego boosting opportunities. That's sort of the undercurrent of the whole expansion, an ego boost.
Yeah, the expansion is definitely like, let's take everything that we couldn't quite get up to 10 in the original game because of the gameplay expectations of somebody playing a new type of game for the first time and just having to refine stuff and time, development, team size, all that kind of stuff. I mean, so many things that we had to kind of scale back, and then we can just say for Aftershock, well, this is going to be amped up to 10 a little bit. The damage on this weapon is going to be... Oh, come on, you jerk. Why do you not die?
You like pushed into the wall there. What happened?
I don't know. But then he still died, so I don't care, I guess. I don't know. Hey man, I don't program the renderers. I just make the gameplay. I make the things go pew pew. I don't, Can't tell you why they broke.
The Putin machine.
So one thing you might notice, I'm walking back around here. So I came out of here from a design perspective. The easiest trail you see is this direction. The floor has a pattern in this direction. It makes you want to go towards it. When you get up here, again, you'll go straight ahead because you see the yellow light and you're holding the yellow key. So just exiting from there, you get back on the right path, even if you were lost before. And little details like that were the kinds of things that we had to enforce in our design docs.
Time to improvise.
Why am I wasting grenade ammo? By the way, if anybody notices that I'm a little sparse on ammo and health sometimes, that's because I'm avoiding secrets. As soon as you start exploring a little bit, hunting for secrets at all, you can be fully stocked most of the time, even on high difficulties, I feel.
Yeah.
Question, did you adjust the auto aim any? I noticed that while there's a switch to toggle it, rounds will still seek enemies while not as strong as when you manually turned it on. The auto aim tends to cause missed shots, at least with me, more than a few times. It was from Rest.
Sure, let me... Here. There. So, the difference between Duke Nukem or Blood or Doom and Ion Fury is that since we have headshots, whenever the cursor is actually overlapping the enemy, then it turns off the auto aim and it matters where you shoot. If your cursor is not on an enemy, it'll mid-track it. In other words, you end up with a midsection shot. You see how I shot above him, but it hit him in the midsection?
Yeah.
And that applies to not the grenade, but to other things too.
Dodge this.
But then let me hit the switch here.
Looks like I'm getting tanked tonight after all.
Ha! Sorry.
Oh yeah.
But if I aim at his feet, it hits him in the feet.
Tear down this wall.
So this is all with auto aim on. You can see it how it responds. Like if I'm not actually like I'm within a certain range, like probably within this angle range of an enemy, it'll hit them in the midsection unless my cursor is over them, and then it matters where I shoot. So the basic idea was to keep the same kind of setup that you might have in a classic game or allow for keyboard only controls, but change it so you could still actually have the same cool gameplay where you can shoot stuff in the head. Because that was one of the things we first had was let's shoot. You can shoot stuff in the head, but you can't really do anything once that happens. Because if they have auto aim enabled, you'll never actually hit the headshot. So they'll just keep hitting him in the chest. So we had to come up with different design considerations for that. Still missing 5 secrets. That's okay. I think there's about 30 secrets per area.
Feels like it.
So the game, in theory, encourages you to get up close and do stuff like that all the time, and I love it. I think of the game less of like, say Doom, and more like Bayonetta. You just gotta keep dancing and you gotta get the good shots.
Maybe we should put some Bayonetta references into Aftershock. Maybe like a Bayonetta Easter egg.
There's a couple small ones in the original game, but that I put in, but I don't know if people noticed them. It's okay. They're more for me. Gotta give her gun boots. No, but we are giving her a really big gun in the expansion. And not a BFG, but a very big gun. Actually, would it probably be a BFG? I don't know. It shoots missiles, though.
Close enough, right?
Yeah. I love the different style transitions that, whoops, why am I doing that? That Leo has. And all the mappers have really, each area tells a little story about where it was. Like clearly we were in the old abandoned GDF section. Everything looked old. It was shut off. This is all lit up. Looks modern, at least for the time period of the game. And, so it carries things forward aesthetically. You know where you're at and how far you've progressed just based on the visuals. That's a little overkill.
Did you have a goal in mind when designing the expansion, like a certain atmosphere that differs from the main game, for example?
Yes and no. So, the first game, how do I explain it? So, in Ion Fury, Shelley's general motivation is that everything's been disrupted, and then as she goes on, more and more stuff is wrong, and she becomes more and more upset and goes after Haskell and the whole thing. It's kind of the basic story. And then in Aftershock, she's more determined, like, I'm going after Haskell, I'm going after anybody that's responsible for this. And it has much more of an adventure-y, like, I'm gonna get after this shit kind of vibe. To me, anyway. Yeah, you agree? Cool. Good. It's not just me. Oh, he hit it out of the sky. Did you see that?
Dang.
Now I gotta start way over, right before the checkpoint. That's why I should save more often. Sometimes I forget, though. And I also seem to never press quick save for some reason. I don't know why. It's just my thing. I think part of it is because I used to always do a rotating 3 save setup, especially for RPGs. Because if I decided I didn't like the last couple sets of choices, I could reverse. I'm that kind of player. What can I say? Son of a bitch. I don't know why I did that.
Dance, fucker, dance.
Shit. So everything in the game, I don't know if people playing have noticed, but every enemy and combination thereof creates a push and pull of different things you have to prioritize and interact with. Almost like a rock, paper, scissors setup, and that was extremely important so that
Oh my god.
even trash enemies start to become important for different things in the cases of creating interesting scenarios. Is it more important to take out a shotgunner or a greater cultist? See, in my opinion, a shotgunner. My greater cultist, you can dodge all day if you're good.
Yeah.
A shotgunner, yes, technically you can dodge, but if you mess up, you're gonna pay for it real fast. Versus with the arrows, maybe you'll get lucky and only get hit with one bolt at a time. So even there, you might be okay.
You just signed your own death warrant, Haskell.
What was the hardest thing or biggest obstacle making Ion Fury besides the engine? I love that little caveat at the end. Besides the engine.
Besides, now that you've spent at least 20 minutes saying that the engine is amazing and yet a pain to work with, what did you say the greatest difficulty is? I would say the greatest difficulty was honestly... Hold on, let me kill somebody.
I guess the engine is just a really difficult thing to deal with.
Yeah, it's not just the engine though. I mean, the engine limited the talent pool, which meant we had a smaller team size. A small team size is really rough, and you need to make sure you have certain people on board, or people are doing triple duty instead of even just double duty, and that was definitely the case during Ion Fury's development. So if you're planning on doing something yourself, make sure that you do what I said in the beginning and plan ahead of time. And then make sure that you can get people on board to help you. Because that's tough, working with just a small team on a project of this, well, at least what ended up being this scope, is pretty hard. I mean, it's okay to do things yourself, but if you are always trying to do everything yourself, you are going to be caught in a world of hurt. You're going to start getting burned out. You're going to think you're not talented enough, and it just turns out that somebody else was the right person to do that part for you. So. And learning how to coordinate and work as a team and get enough people, definitely the biggest challenge.
I like the way you die.
Weapons would the GDF personnel use if there were any alive in the game?
What?
This is interesting. What weapons would the GDF personnel use if there were any alive in the game? So what would be their service weapon?
Okay, so they would, in theory, use a pistol, but a lot of them have the disperser or the SMG. The disperser is actually, if you look at the Shelley sprite, if you press F7, you can see Shelley's sprite. Well, there's a mirror when you need one. So you can see the front. Damn you! Get that armor. Sorry. Now I'm getting distracted again. So basically, her setup that you would see there is similar to what a JDF soldier might wear, basic armor. And then if I had a mirror, you could see that she's carrying the disperser, and then she has a weapon, another sidearm holstered at her side. And that's pretty much what the GDF would be using. They would be using weapons like that. So you can almost think of them as more like high-powered military soldiers, like a Judge Dredd situation, than you would normal police, for sure.
And another thing, Oasis brought this up in the chat, that making a game is very different than making a mod. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
About what the differences are?
Yeah, well, if I'm making a mod, I don't really have to worry too much about certain user experience considerations. So basically, in Ion Fury, I had talked about all those docs and the different unit tests I did and everything a little while ago. And essentially, when I was in the process of doing that, I was continually refining all the different gameplay things to make sure that the user experience was making sense, that everything that somebody did or had interact with made sense. And then as we were doing the levels, it had to be the same. Everything that the designers were coming up with had to make sense in a certain way. If I'm playing a Duke Nukem 3D mod, I might have little tiny switches on the ceiling over here that you have to shoot in order to progress through the game, and there might be no indicator that that switch is there. And for a Duke Nukem 3D mod, that might be fine, and people might think, oh, I just missed it, I didn't look in every single corner, I should have known that's a thing from Duke Nukem or whatever. I'm making it a game, on the other hand. I'm not just modding Duke Nukem. I can't rely on people's preconceived notions. I have to make it make sense within the own world that I've presented. And the mappers have to make sure that they're doing the same, and the artists have to do that as well. I mean, it becomes a pretty intensive process when normally you could just say, good enough, and then you get to a point where you're like, no, it actually has to be right. I can't just say, well, deal with it. Deal with it. Read the manual. Learn the game. Whatever. Why aren't you down with this mod community? I should probably save, considering I forgot to before. So one thing we have to think about as a designer, like especially when I'm designing the gameplay, is a ridiculous amount of small things, like feedback from a gun. Like how should the view move? How should the blood move? How long should it take between shots? Is the fact that the screen shakes when crossbow bolts land near you? I mean, that's something I consider too. Like before, they didn't do, like, they just hit the wall, nothing happened. Well, it seemed weak, even with the appropriate sounds. But as soon as you shake the level, well, then everything's quaking from this shot. It must be a powerful gun. Pretty sure there's something up there, but I'm not gonna do it.
It's a really subtle thing, but that makes a huge difference for how the game feels.
Come on. Oops. Walked right into it. Why are you not dying? If I'd waited a little bit in the beginning and charged it up all the way before throwing it, it would have killed that entire group. But because throwing a charged bully bomb increases the overall range, but I messed up, and I messed up there too. I'm probably gonna die again. That's okay. Whoops. Fuck!
1 HP. Yeah, I think you guys did a pretty good job of balancing the difficulty in this game. A couple of people in the chat are talking about that. It's, Maximum Fury is just really satisfying to play on it. Yeah.
Yeah, Maximum Fury in this version is really hard, though. Maybe I should show that off for the new patch. Just because you've probably noticed that the enemies are really aggressive. You probably noticed in 2.0 that some of the AI mistakes that they were making before stopped happening. But there's still a couple little things, like them not shooting through some doorways and some other small bugs, and that kind of stuff got patched for the next version. So you'll have to be on your toes.
Yeah, that was a thing that I noticed immediately in 2.0 was that just playing on it for a little while, a lot of the things that I expected from, you know, say 100% playthrough on 1.0 or 1.1, I mean, now all of a sudden these enemies over here can shoot me a lot earlier, and it was, took a little while to get used to that.
Yeah, and it has to do with, it's silly, but, you know, it was a line of sight bug, basically. Like, enemies just weren't in the right spot when they were doing a check to be able to see certain things, and I don't know. It was kind of silly, but, oh well, it got fixed. Whoops. Walked into it.
We're done when I say we're done.
So as we're kind of winding down here, one last big philosophical question I can lob at you
Sure.
is, do you have any advice for people who are aspiring game developers? Because this scene attracts, you know, modders who have hopes of developing their own games. It attracts people who are in the midst of making their own stuff. What would you say to them? Stop! Don't!
Stop! Don't! No! So, my advice would be to keep experimenting. Use what tools you can work with best, and don't expect results quickly. You're going to end up iterating on ideas, or you'll show people ideas and they won't understand them. And so you'll discover, oh, I have to go back to the drawing board to make this something that's actually interesting and playable for somebody other than myself. And on top of that, depending on what you do in game design, so say you're like me and you're more of a designer. Like, I'm not really, even though I program the scripts for the game, I'm not really as much of a programmer. I'm more of a designer. So if you want to get into design, you have to know a little bit of everything. You have to be able to do some level design, a little bit of coding, a little bit of art, all these other things. And then if you want to do level design, that's a whole different ball game. And the level designers that I know have a completely different set of skills than I do in general, and the same with artists and everything else. So figure out where your niche is and what you're good at, and try to hook up with other people and be able to express and improve your talents in that way. And don't don't think that everything's going to be fast and successful, especially like, I mean, I was, what year is it? 2022. So yeah,
Oh,
I was like 35 when Ion Fury 1.0 came out, and I'd been working for years on the game and then also on my skills before that. So it just takes time, and that's okay. And feel free to do other things in the meantime, and don't let people discourage you. And you can always participate even if you're not strictly going to be like a developer. There are always other ways you can participate. I mean, we have people that aren't exactly with Void Point, but that we have as a special group of people that we use for testing, and those are incredibly important people, and often they kind of get ignored as a job too. Like that's an important skill. QA testing is totally different than just playing a game. It's totally different than developing a game. Writing is different than coding. Art is different than level design. Sound design is different than engine design. It's all these different things. You're gonna have different pools of skills and talents, and it's okay to just find yours and utilize it, and take your time.
Yeah.
Now, if I can remember how to get out of here, I can finish this level. Oh yeah, shooting range.
Max added in, remember to playtest. It's very important. People will tell you what's actually fun, and what you think might be clever doesn't actually work at all in practice. That's probably true.
Yes,
Not
absolutely.
all of your ideas will work out.
150%. Especially, like, you'll find, working with a team, you find that there are differences of opinion and separation in expectations, and it might turn out, like, even if Max or I say, no, it should be like this, or like this, or even somebody like Rich, the big boss, comes in and says, no, this is how we're doing it, we could be wrong. And having other people on the team who know their stuff and are willing to sort of step in and say, well, let's at least try it, is important. Obviously, you want people that'll go along with you, but you need those different voices, because it's real easy to get lost in what you think is good when nobody else in the entire world is going to grasp it at all.
Well, I think that about wraps it up here.
Yeah,
I appreciate you, Jonathan, for being here.
you're welcome.
This was fun.
Yeah, of course.
And we would love to do this more often. If people want other members of the team to hop on here and talk, we would love to do more of that.
Yeah, I think I
That'd
would.
be awesome.
I would. It would be fun to do some streams too with a couple of us together, so that we can get some level designers talking and that kind of stuff too. It'd be pretty
Yeah.
fun. Just let us know if you're interested, and we'll try to set that up.
Find us on Twitter, VoidPoint, but it's PNT.
Void pint.
Yes.
Yep.
I missed that one. Oh shit.
All right, but thank you everybody for your wonderful questions. We really did appreciate it, and this was kind of a surprise event. Maybe we only had about a week to let everybody know that we were doing it, but this is really cool. So yes, absolutely let us know if you want us to do this again. And Fitterspace, thank you so much for talking with us and wrangling all of the questions with me, and we of course love all of your good work in speedrunning.
Oh,
Absolutely.
You're the best.
Yeah.
Been a blast.
You've been a great community member, so thank you.
Thank you. That's very nice of you.
Yeah,
to say.
everybody make sure to subscribe to his Twitch channel so that you can check it out. He also has streamable stuff that he posts and everything. He's a big time streamer. He's great. So,
Yes, thank you.
all right, everybody.
We'll see you next time, we hope.
Stopping by.
Thank you.